Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm really excited to bring this last session in the series of videos on how to become an architect. And as we did during the entire series of videos, one of the most important things that everyone has to focus on, even though they are on technology part, is soft skills. And that would be the topic of this discussion. And I'm glad to have Koushik and Shiva here to discuss that with me. Welcome, Kaushik. Welcome, Shiva.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Ranga.
Soft skills is one of the areas that's one of the, I mean, when let's say I'm going from a programmer to an architect role, I think soft skills is one of the most important areas which somebody needs to focus on. Kaushik, what's your opinion about it? And what are the important areas that a beginner, like somebody who's going up the career path in the technology line, would need to think about to start off with?
Yeah, I agree that soft skills is very important. When we are programmers, we tend to focus on our code output, right? Most of the times, that's what we are paid to do, and we got to do that on a daily basis. But we are never a one-person team. We often have to work with other people. We often have to manage up. Once you get to a senior level, you got to manage down as well. There are other stakeholders that you're going to have to work with. There are other people who are interested in the progress of your project and all that. So all of these are human interactions, right? And it's coding is just a one portion of your job as a software developer or an architect. Even you have to communicate ideas, you have to communicate status, you have to communicate risks. There are a whole lot of things, right? So all of this is governed by your soft skills. How good you are in communicating, how good you are in listening and understanding what somebody else is communicating, what is the best way to communicate something. So these are all fuzzy things, right? There are no precise answers to it. um, I also think that soft skills is especially important now that pretty much everybody, all of us are doing agile methodologies, and we're not doing like the waterfall way. It was a little less important when, in the old school way of doing things, when developers were given a requirement and like, okay, work on it for 6 months, and then when you're done, come and let me know, right? Not so much soft skills. Of course, you're going to have to still
Absolutely.
talk to the team, but not so much soft skills. But now with agile, uh, there is this practice of bringing in all the stakeholders, like I talked about, right? So you have to make sure you're able to communicate effectively and communicate on time, and also value other people's time, and also understand what other people are communicating. It's a two-way thing. So that's, I think, the reason why soft skills are very important, no matter where you are in your career journey as in the software industry.
Absolutely. Soft skills are really important. Shiva?
Yeah, Kaushik is spot on when it comes to how important these soft skills are when it comes to software development. I'll throw a slightly different point of view, not from the software development, from the career perspective, for your own career perspective. If you go and talk to any person who is into software development for more than 20, 25 years, and if you ask, what is the one suggestion you give me for making my career better, I bet there is a high chance that they will give you a suggestion that doesn't involve coding, that doesn't involve what libraries, what frameworks, what languages you will have to learn. The suggestion would be something related to how you interact with the people. So that is how much important it is to learn and grow that skill of communicating effectively. Uh, I don't know whether it is the right thing or wrong. We divide this as a soft skill, something nice to have. When we say soft skill, it kind of gives a notion that it is a nice to have because we are software developers and our primary goal is to have programming skills, and it will help you if you have soft skills. But as Kaushik mentioned, if you take our 8-hour workday, how much time you actually code and how much time you spend talking to people, maybe trying to understand the business requirement or trying to communicate to the other people like business analysts or QA folks. that is enormously, like I would say 60 to 40%. 40% at best case scenario, you might be coding, 60% you would be talking to people. So learning what are the effective ways, how much good you communicate with others, that really helps to boost your career. And yeah, especially if you are playing the role of software architect, right? Kind of you are in the center of everything. Like you are in the center of when business want to communicate something to the tech team, you will be there. When there are some hurdles between some technical implementation, you will be there. So as an architect, is knowing how to communicate is at most important and uh, the most sought out skill.
Absolutely. So to add on to what Shiva is saying, I think uh, when you start off, it might be 60-40 or 40-60, but as you go up the chain and go further up the architect ladder, you would see that probably the technical skills are only 10%, and probably the actual soft skills area, the communication, becomes 90% of your job. And added to it is the fact that a lot of times we assume requirements are set on stone. That's not the case. It's one of the most important jobs of a software developer. I mean, as you go further in the career, it becomes much more important. It is to ensure that you understand what the business needs are, not what requirements they give you are, but what the actual need is. And to be able to understand that, communication is a very important part. um, Kaushik, one of the things which you stressed upon a lot during this series of videos is empathy, right? So understanding others' perspective, uh, keenly listening to others' perspectives as well. So do you want to stress on that a little bit more?
Sure. I think empathy is what makes a good person in general, right? Set aside the whole software industry and all that stuff. When two people communicate, we are trying to exchange our perspectives. And a big part of me understanding what someone else is communicating is to see the context in which they're communicating something, right? What is their angle? Where are they coming from? So the words are just a small portion of it, right? The rest of it is the context. A lot of it is what they're feeling at the time. The rest of it is what is their journey been to get to that point. And there's this whole surrounding subtext for any communication that's not available in the words. um, People who are good at understanding what someone else is saying, they're able to read that subtext. They're able to read kind of like the context where the words are spoken. That is empathy in my mind. Empathy is to understand where that other person is coming from, so that you get that additional meaning to the words that's being said. Why is this important? This is important in general because people are different, and if you are interpreting the words that you hear from your own context, from your own perspective, it loses all of that meaning, right? The way you say things will be very different from the way someone else says things. So in general, that's a good thing. But in the software profession, empathy is very useful in a bunch of different use cases. Situations. One is when you have people from different streams or lines of work communicating. Okay, so for example, Shiva talked about product management or something like that, business requirements. When somebody from the business is talking to somebody from the software, somebody who codes, these are people from two different worlds who are trying to communicate and trying to get their point across. If you interpret everything that a business owner says like what a software engineer would say, you're going to be having a very tough time, because whatever the business owner is saying is from that context. So you need to understand where that person is coming from. What is that surrounding context that, it's like that is basically uh, a vital portion. So a vital portion of communication and soft skills in general is listening, right? The ability to listen and understand. And a vital portion of listening is having that empathy and trying to understand where the other person is coming from. And this is applicable. One example is when you're talking to people in different streams of work. The other is also talking to your teammates, right? So understanding what they're going through. So you're an architect, a junior developer comes in and they say, well, I'm having trouble with something. an experienced architect can go, okay, what is the trouble actually? Like, why is that person having trouble? Is it because they're overwhelmed with work? Is it because they have some personal issues going on? Is it because they have imposter syndrome? Trying to understand that. It's not your job, but trying to understand that and being able to connect with that part of it makes you so much of a better leader in your team, or be it a team lead or an architect, so much better in your job than somebody who doesn't have that empathy and just looks at it at face value. So empathy is something that can be learned and practiced. And I think it's not just makes you a good software engineer, but a good person overall. So it's a good skill to have.
Absolutely. Empathy makes you a good person. Shiva?
Yeah, one of the quality, like if you want to grow as a software engineer, for that matter, in any profession, right? One of the thing is you should be approachable for other people to come to you and talk to you. You should be approachable. When do you become approachable? First, you just listen what they have to say and understand why they are saying it. Instead of the moment they say something and you have your own opinions, right? Everyone has their own opinions. Instead of start judging from your perspective and then start giving suggestions, just what we have to do is just listen, completely listen what they have to say, and then instead of giving your judgmental opinion, then ask questions like why you are feeling so. Maybe they are not feeling comfortable with some approach we take as an architect. Then ask, okay, what is your opinion and why you are feeling it is not the right approach, or do you have any better suggestion? So drive the discussion in that way instead of like, I have applied this architectural style, it worked fantastically, you have to upskill yourself. So that's where you lose this the whole thing. Like you have to listen what they have to say because they have their own perspective also. So that's
Absolutely.
you ask them and you listen completely and then understand from their point of view. That is how you can become approachable. That is at most important, especially the more you go into the this career ladder. You have to be approachable to become successful, and not only with the business folks and even within the team, right? There are junior developers, there are senior developers. You need to know how to communicate, and you need to know have a ear to listen what they have to say. Yeah, only way is become a good listener. Don't talk too much.
Yep.
Listen. And recently, I one thing I noticed very interestingly, everyone has a lot of things to say, and nobody is willing to listen. So, in the past few years, what I have been practicing is just shut my mouth and listen. And there are so much you can learn from each of them, and you can't even imagine like we all have our own thoughts and ideas and all, right? But just keep quiet and listen. You will learn so many things from everybody, and at times you get surprised. You may think somebody is a junior developer, how hardly they might know very little, but just listen to them, and then you'll understand. Okay, they have a lot better ideas than you, and you can learn from them. So my suggestion to the viewers is listen, just listen.
Shut up and listen. Nice. Good. So that's empathy, right? Communication, listening. Those are some of the most important parts to start off with. Another important part of being an architect is making decisions. And the problem with some of the decisions we make as an architect is that they are not 90-10 decisions. Most of the decisions that you would need to make as an architect are more like a 40-60 or a 45-55. So those are not clear cut black and white kind of decisions. So we need to make decisions, and not only that, we need to communicate them effectively to the team. We need to bring everybody on board with the decisions we make. Any things that you would want to highlight, Shiva, with respect to your experiences related to making decisions as well as communicating them?
Yeah, if you're in charge of making decisions, that's a wonderful place to be in. But in my experience, in most of the organizations, certain decisions are already made, like the tech stack or what cloud platform you want to use. say at the organization level, they might have some alliance with so and so cloud provider, and it is already a taken decision. You don't have a say in that. So leaving all that those things which are beyond your control, there are a good amount of things that you can drive as an architect, right? So there, as an architect, it's not like you are in charge of everything where you take decisions and everyone follows it. You have to take entire team on board, and it's not as simple as we say. It is really hard, especially when team has very enthusiastic, passionate people who have strong opinions. At times it becomes very challenging also. People have different opinions, and everyone start debating, and at times almost 80% of the scenarios people are rational, and you can talk to them, and then we all agree upon some approach and then go with it. And at times you find difficulty, and there won't be a common agreement on what is the approach or what is the tech stack we want to go with. So there, as a lead or an architect, you have to take the decision. You can't keep debating forever because there is a business goal we need to reach. So yeah, occasionally you will get into a stage where you have to take the decision, but that's a corner case. Let's assume that's not going to happen every often. But in all other scenarios, the best way is to put forward, okay, this is the problem we are trying to solve, and we need to come up with an approach and give some time, and then later gather all the team members and ask everyone how they want to do it. What is their preferred approach? Hardly there are two, three variations of things, and then once we start discussing, most likely people come to an agreement, and if not, we can start writing pros and cons of each approach, and then come to a common agreement of okay, this is what we want to do. It is really, really an important being every member of the team part of the decision making process, so that they also kind of take a bit of ownership. Otherwise, it's always like okay, architect will decide, and I have to go and implement based on that. I don't have a say in it. But if you make all the team members part of the decision making process also, initially it feels like we are slowing down, we are having too many discussions for taking any decisions, but that is really an important thing to do. Otherwise, it's going to be like you take the decision, we follow, and if there is anything wrong, it's your decision. Those kind of things come. So
Absolutely.
always I would suggest take the team and then get them on board with the overall idea. That would give most positive results.
Okay, cool. So involve the team, promote collective ownership of decisions. Kaushik?
Yeah.
I agree. The other benefit of involving the team is there's always value in making data-driven decisions. When you have to decide between A versus B, try and get all the data and make a rational choice. And oftentimes you may not have all the data, right? You may not know everything. Involving the team brings up different perspectives and different data points that will affect the decision process. I also feel like not all decisions are the same. For example, I've been in situations where the teams have been pretty high performing, and it's kind of like most of the times it was pretty obvious what needs to be done. The team kind of unanimously decided something, and as a team lead, my job would be just a tiebreaker, right? My job is like, okay, we have made all these decisions. The team kind of autonomously decided that, and for this thing, there are two people who are debating passionately, and they have their own opinions. My job is to just go and say we're going to do one, right? Kind of put that,
Absolutely.
yeah. There are other situations where the team is kind of in the dark and they're struggling, right? That is also another use case. So when something like that happens, my job has been to guide them towards getting that data. Okay, so I'd be like, okay, again, involve the team. That's very important. But then I ask them, okay, what information do we need so that we are convinced to make a decision? And then my job at that point is to guide them to getting to that place where they have all the data necessary to make the decision. Again, going in a data-driven approach, it's more of like, okay, let's do this and this. And at this point, if we have this information, are we comfortable making the decision? In that case, again, the team would make a decision, or there would be a tie, and I would jump in and break the tie or something like that. So I think there are various ways in which you affect the decision, starting from, you know, you being a position of authority. It's my, I'm the architect, I'm going to do it this way, but that never works.
Yeah.
This is more of like involving the team in all these different ways. Helps
Right.
both the decision as well as the team's morale in working towards the the thing that is decided.
Absolutely, absolutely. So involve the team and make sure that they have all the information they need to make the decision. And if there is a gap, then probably try and fill it in so that we can make better decisions as a team. Awesome, awesome. Um, like so we talked about empathy, we talked about a little bit about making decisions is such a complex thing that I think we can even have a complete discussion just on making on making choices and some of the things that you can do about it. um, let's probably talk about another aspect which came up frequently during our discussions earlier, which is being religious about technology. A lot of us are actually uh, dedicated to are probably tied themselves to a specific language, specific framework, a specific technology, and we find it very very difficult to move away from it. Or if somebody uh, talks bad about it, or presents alternative approaches, then we feel bad about it. However, like if you really want to grow as a technologist, as an architect, one of the most important things is to be able to separate yourself from technology, right? Like what we have seen in the last 20 years is like technology changes. Whatever is the truth yesterday is not the truth anymore today. So how do like what are some of the best practices that people can try and adapt to get a mindset where they are okay to make changes, to be more flexible? Kaushik?
Um, and since this is being heard by people who are on the path to becoming an architect or who are newly architects, here's a situation that the viewer or listener is probably going to be in. Remember the time when you were a junior developer and you were looking at the architect going, why are they using some outdated technology? Man, here is a new fancy technology. Why don't we use this, right? Why are they stuck on legacy tech? Guess what? Now that you're an architect, the balance is flipped. So there are going to be new people who are going to come in and criticize your technology stack. That's bound to happen. That's happened to me as well. They've been like, "What's this guy Koushik doing with this legacy stack? Why not use this new, JavaScript library that's come out yesterday?" That's a very common cycle. That's to be expected. A lot of technology decisions, I think we talked about this earlier as well. A lot of technology decisions is driven by momentum. It's driven by what's already there. There needs to be a significant catalyst to influence a major technology shift. Okay, at least for an existing project. The technology choices are a little more open when you're trying to build a new project, right? But for an existing project, for an existing code base, for a technology to be modernized, either the path should be very easy, or the catalyst should be significant enough. Like, okay, this thing is going to break, or there is a major security issue, we have to upgrade, right? That's what's going to justify the cost. Otherwise, the bigger the code base, the more difficult it is to shift, and less likely are companies to fund that shift. What I would recommend in terms of kind of keeping yourself up to date is to acknowledge that, but at the same time, you know, keep a pulse on what is happening in the market, right? What is going on in the market? What are those new engineers coming and saying you should be using, right? Don't dismiss it. Again, it goes back to empathy, right?
Right.
Listen to what they have to say. Listen to the reasons why they suggest that you need to use it, and then evaluate it. See what the trade-off is, what the cost benefit analysis is, what's the opportunity cost as well, and see if this is something that you want to explore in phases. One of the promises of a microservice architecture is the ability to mix and match, be that polyglot architecture. If you have an architecture like that, use it to your advantage, and maybe pick a, like, if you really think something is valuable, pick a low impact area in your code base to adapt to this new technology. If you don't have anything like that, well, try some new project, right? Some internal tool. Right? A lot of my new technology evaluation that I did on the job, forget the things that I did as a hobby, right? On the job evaluation tools have all been like internal tools. Like it helps our own team solve
Absolutely.
some small problem. It's a good low cost way to enter into a new technology and see what the team feels and see if it fits your use case. And on the other hand, if you're not in a position where you can do these incremental changes, move to an architecture where you can do that, because that's going to be vital. Technology
Exactly.
is changing at a much more rapid pace. So you need to be in a position where you can adapt new technology easily. So those are some pointers and some advice I would give to make sure that
Cool.
you're not this old legacy architect that all new people are going to criticize about, which is always going to happen, but it shouldn't be justified.
Exactly. So keep exploring new technology and also ensure that your architecture is moving along with time so that you
Yeah.
can adapt your architecture based on the changing times. Shiva?
Yeah. Well, let's say you are working with a programming language and for a considerable amount of time, and you used a set of frameworks, and you are extremely productive in that tech stack. And someone came along and then say your programming language sucks, your framework is overcomplicated, I hate this, and instead you should be using my favorite tech stack. And both are right from their own perspective, because you have proven that it is extremely productive tool set for you in your experience. And the other person, they came back, they came up with their own experience. They have used a different tech stack, and they are extremely productive in that tech stack. So occasionally, when you are not being rational, these discussions came up, and then there will be a heated debate. Why Spring Boot is uses Spring Boot is the most popular and easy to use framework, and they say uh, this is the most complicated thing I have ever seen. Both are right in their own ways. They haven't seen how much value it brings in, and you haven't seen how many wonderful things you can do in Node.js, probably. So here, I did this kind of a discussions earlier. I had this kind of a debates earlier, and we never came to an agreement that which is good. Obviously, we are so much attached to our own favorite tech stacks, and we never came to an agreement. But over the years, I understand there is no need to take it so personally. We don't have to attach ourselves too strongly with some tech stack. But then, how do you understand the other person perspective, right? The only way is when someone says, "Okay, I can be more productive in my tech stack," then ask, "Why do you do so and so thing?" Okay, I want to build an event-driven architecture. Your tech stack, how easy it is, how configurable it is. Suppose I want to implement some monitoring capabilities, how easy it is. I can simply add a starter in my tech stack, how easy it is to your tech stack. So there can be two things happen in that kind of a discussion. One, you will learn there are a lot of features in their tech stack, or they learn it's not as bad as they are thinking what your tech stack is. So either way, one of you get educated, or in the best case scenario, both of you will get educated if you ask the right question of how do you do so and so task in your tech stack, instead of saying that I hate so and so framework. So that never ends up with anything useful. So ask, how do you do so and so thing in your favorite framework or programming language? That's the only way to come to the terms, and then educate yourself. Not only you, if it is a reasonable discussion, both of you can get learn something new. So that's what I would say. If somebody says criticize your tech stack, ask, how do you do so and so thing? Maybe you learn or you teach. Either way, it's a win-win.
Yeah. So get to know little bit more like about the other technology as well, and maybe that helps you in
Yeah.
making a better decision. Cool. I think one of the constant things that we have been talking about is exploring new technology, learning new technology, right? So,
Hmm.
are there any best practices that you would recommend for somebody who wants to be an architect about how can they learn quickly, right? So today, one of the major challenges is there is so much to learn, right? There are so many new languages coming up, frameworks coming up, technologies, and everything is changing with the cloud and things like that. So learning is very, very important, but learning, like, it's becoming a little bit more tricky than earlier because there are so many options. But if you look at it the other perspective, learning is becoming easier as well because there are so many avenues that are available today which were not available a few years back with respect to learning, right? So the number of awesome courses or awesome like YouTube videos that are available to learn today, I don't think those existed a few years back. So how do you see learning, and what are some of the things that somebody can do to ensure that they constantly learn? Kaushik?
Having I give this example of doing it as a push rather than a pull. I like the idea of subscribing to blogs and news feeds so that the information comes to you, because otherwise I forget to keep myself up to date. Like, I have to remember to go check out those blogs. Kind of having some kind of an RSS reader or subscribing to newsfeed is a good way to do it. I also like, for learning as an architect, I recommend looking at um, what other architects are doing in the industry. This includes looking at tech blogs for all these tech companies. There are gems there out in the open that people don't even know. A lot of tech companies post technical blogs which kind of show off important architecture decisions and the scale at which they've done. They're doing it for possibly their own selfish reasons. One is the show off thing, and the other is to hire good talent because they're advertising how
Absolutely.
cutting edge their technology is. But even if you never want to work in that company, you can still benefit from it by reading it and learning how they made those decisions. This is true not just for tech blogs. This is true also for various software architecture conferences. If you look at channels like Devox, they actually have recordings of senior architects in big companies just giving all the information about how they had a big problem and how they solved it. Right? They
Absolutely.
kind of I've seen a lot of these people just share information that I wouldn't imagine people would share. They're very open, and it's like these are, like I said, they're gems out in the open, but people don't realize the value of it. I
Exactly.
would have imagine people, architects from 10 years ago, they would be kind of salivating at this kind of valuable information that's available out in the open now. So again, the amount of information is pretty high. So the more experienced you are, the more picky you have to be about what content you consume on
Mhm.
YouTube or social media. Yes, there is a lot of noise on YouTube in terms of tutorial videos, but at the same time, a lot of YouTube tutorial videos are aimed at freshers or people who are just learning to code. The more you grow in your career, the lesser your content becomes, the availability of the content becomes. There are very few who are actually giving good value for senior developers or experienced developers. So make sure you choose wisely, and make
Absolutely.
sure you're the people who are talking have proved their worth. It's not somebody who's just a YouTuber and they're talking about big architectures. Like, how do you know how to build
Exactly.
architecture? At the same time, the CTO of Netflix talks about this. I'm going to listen because this is a person who has actually worked on this. So I think those are some guiding factors in terms of what content you want to consume.
Absolutely. I think your point about DevOps, I think that's applicable in general for a lot of content on YouTube. There is such amazing content. The only problem is it does not come number one in search results. So you need to find out, uh, you need to work out how to find such content. And if you're able to actually,
Sorry, please
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Kaushik.
Yeah, what I was saying was YouTube is, I've had several conversations about YouTube, the state of YouTube right now. YouTube is geared more towards entertainment value. The whole machinery, including the algorithm, the way it positions videos. I don't mean entertainment videos. Even technical videos which have more entertainment value tends to be prioritized by YouTube. If you look at something like DevOps, it's probably not entertaining. It
Exactly.
seems boring when you start out with, as opposed to like a tech YouTuber who makes like 100 different jump cuts to convey one sentence. It's more catchy, but no
Absolutely.
jump cuts in a DevOps video. So our mind is kind of tuned to think, okay, this is a boring video. So that's the reason why
Right.
it's diamond out in the open if you're
Yeah.
willing to invest the time and get past that idea of, yes, this is going to be slow, and you're going to have to skip the first 5 minutes where people are talking about who they are and their Twitter handle and all that stuff. But the real value comes after that. Listen to a lot of tech talk videos. I think that would be a good resource.
Absolutely. I think in general, watching any videos from conferences, and there are tons of conferences happening around the world, right? So a lot of these conferences, people who go to them, who people who present there, are guys who have really good experience. And watching that, like for me, like whenever I learn something new, one of the first things I try and do is go to YouTube and search for conference videos related to that specific topic, because I find that's the best way to learn, because this is somebody who has experience with that topic, so he's presenting it in a way where he's also talking about real world challenges. It's not about building something, it's about taking it live and all the
Right.
experiences around that. So I have a feeling that like a lot of these conference videos gives you the complete picture. It's not just about how do you build a Spring Boot app, but actually it's about, okay, how do I take it live and what are the challenges I faced in the entire journey, and that really uh, completes our learning. Shiva,
Yeah,
anything to add on learning and how you can learn effectively?
yeah, depending on your role, you need to choose wisely which type of content you are going to consume. Like if you are a developer, maybe you're mostly looking towards how to implement so and so feature. But when you are a architect, the kind of content you need to consume is it should be like how do you design or scale an architecture. So you need to choose your content wisely. As Kaushik mentioned, the DevOps, and then there is an InfoQ channel. I find the fantastic content on that channel. Mostly how they implemented so-and-so architecture and their positive and negative experiences with that approach, and also how to scale up teams. So a lot of this not so tutorial kind of videos are there. uh, Again, they might not be fancy with full of graphics and all fancy stuff, but content is really good.
Mm.
Also, one another thing I do is when, let's say, if I see one presentation and the presenter is really good and they are putting their thoughts in a so fantastically, I try to follow that person and try to see what other presentations the same person gave, and then I go on and on to learn more and more. Usually, the same person give multiple presentations on the similar topics. So if I get good amount of content on some subject, fine. But if I am curious to learn more, usually I search by the person and then go and read yeah, and watch about other presentations the same person did. Uh, yeah, InfoQ is one thing, and I think there is another Go or something. So there are few conferences which talks not hello world or how to do so and so stuff, more of architectural level things, and their experiences, not just how to do. Once we do it, what happened? That kind of post-mortem experiences also matters. So
Yes.
you can see what happened once they go full on microservices approach. What happened once they go on to event driven? So recently also I kind of see one company, they go full into microservices, like they end up having 4,000 microservices or so. And then they are slowly coming back and merging multiple services into one service. So these kind of experiences they share, and what makes them to come back into the reverse direction. So all these are very worth to get this info, because it is very expensive to get that experience by doing the same thing
Absolutely.
you doing it. So
Yeah.
let's learn from somebody else's mistake. That is the best thing you can do. You don't have all the time to make all the mistakes by yourself and learn. So rely on somebody else's mistakes.
Yeah, I think one of the persons I would really want to highlight is Venkat Subramaniam. I think with
Mm.
respect to design, with respect to architecture, some of
Yeah.
his content is really amazing. I mean, whenever I want to learn some new style of doing things, I would first look up, okay, is there a video or is there a conference video by Venkat Subramaniam based on that
Mm.
specific topic? Any other
Yeah.
people you would want to highlight? Koushik, Shiva, open for you.
I have a bunch of. So this is something that I wish I was doing, but I'm not doing enough of. And Shiva, you've given me the inspiration to do this. Like follow people. I don't do that. I actually follow kind of like these aggregator channels like Devox. I do InfoQ as well. I used to do server side, but server side I don't know if it's that quality anymore. Devox and InfoQ are really good. Um, what I plan to do now that you've mentioned this, Shiva, is follow people. I think there is value in, like, like you mentioned, if you find a talk interesting, people have Twitter and they tweet blog posts, they tweet their talks, right, opinions, or they share interesting stuff. That's
Absolutely.
also a gold mine, right? You can see what they're thinking about, and that is also a push model, not a pull model, right? You don't have to go seek it. Whenever somebody who is influential, like follow Java champions, for example, whenever
Yeah.
they tweet or something, you get it, and then you follow and you learn, and then they usually retweet somebody else, and then you see, okay, who is the person who actually tweeted, try and follow them if you find them interesting. So this is how kind of you grow people you're listening to. I'll be honest, I haven't been following people, but I plan to do that from now on.
Cool. Great to hear
Yeah.
that. Um,
Couple of people. One another idea is right. Usually, when we watch any presentation from various sources, I always find a drastic difference hearing from somebody who actually invented that idea. Let's take a microservice, right? So somebody presented addressing some problem, but in the translation of adopting by various people and their own way of perceiving the idea, maybe what you are listening from one person is totally different from what and why it is invented. So it's always very fascinating to hear from the people like who actually invented that. So, for example, when it comes to event-driven architecture, Chris Richardson, you listen to him, and it's a mind-blowing what you can understand. Okay, this is not about splitting this whole thing into different microservices and all that. What is the problem? They actually try to invent this approach. So I would strongly suggest try to listen from the people who actually invented that idea. You will get a totally different perspective. For example, in the Go language world, right? If you watch presentations from Rob Pike, that is mind blowing. Like you will understand what does he mean by simplicity. We all talk about simplicity left and right, right? But when he explains what he means by simplicity, and you literally take a moment and then think through it, and then wow, I never really thought like this. So I would strongly recommend listen to these people who actually coined these terms or invented some idea or architectural style. Your perspective might change towards that subject.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one thing I regularly do actually. Whenever I start learning new technology, I try and find out who invented it and what's the content they have. Like usually it will be a remote video on YouTube again. Like 99% of the times you would go to YouTube, you'd find that on YouTube itself, but it would be a video typically with 100 views or 150 views, not more
Yeah.
than that. But like one interesting video I found was on Docker, like when they first introduced Docker, like why Docker. That gives you a very very interesting perspective on not just like the beginnings, I mean what their ideas were, but because we know what it is today, you also get an idea of how it has evolved over a period of time. What was the initial idea, how it has changed over a period of time, and also what were the decisions they needed to make. Like a lot of times, like we were talking about learning, like making decisions. I find like to make decisions, one of the most important interesting experiences that, I mean, one of the most important thing is to have the experience of making decisions. And for a newbie, that's very difficult, and that's where you can go back. Like watching that kind of content gives you like more information on how you can make those decisions, how these guys made those decisions, so that you actually can make such decisions going forward. Awesome. Just
A couple of
to
people I
I
would
think
like to call out. Couple of names I would like to call out so that viewers can benefit from this. So typically in the Kubernetes area, Kelsey Hightower, that is the name you should know. And if you watch his presentations on YouTube, you are going to stand up and give a stand-up ovation. That's how beautiful his presentations are. If you are into Microsoft .NET world, Shane Hanselman, and he is amazing person. He has a, podcast also, and I think by now he recorded almost 1,600 or 16,000 podcast episodes. And he is a great human being, not just technologist. He's a great human being. You should definitely follow. Another one, Chris Richardson, and if you are into microservices, Sam Newman. And usual suspects, Martin Fowler and Uncle Bob, everyone knows about them. So yeah, there are few people you should definitely watch out and learn from.
thank you, Shiva. Like probably like we have 5 more minutes. uh, let's probably discuss a little bit about the importance of mentoring. uh, one of the one of the things I found over my career was having the right mentors helps you make the right choices with respect to your career, and also helps you identify the right things to do, right things to learn, and things like that. And over a period of time, I also mentored a lot of other but like young tech leads, like architects, and I felt that added a lot of value to them. What are the some Kaushik, how do you see mentoring, and what are some of the things you would recommend people to do?
I think mentoring is very useful. Um, it's So there are different kinds of mentors. What I have found to be really useful with mentorship is if a mentor works with you and tries to help you find what you're looking for. You know, a traditional idea, or at least this is something that I was thinking incorrectly when I started my journey. The traditional idea of this mentor is this wise sage who has all the wisdom, and then you go to them with a question, and then they answer that question, and you're going to go, "Wow, this opened my mind," and all that. But the reality is, there are no such clear answers, and to be honest, there are no such clear questions either, right? A big part of it is like what kind of what should you be looking at, what are the questions you should be concerned with. That itself is a question, and there are no clear questions like that. So a large part of mentorship is trying to help you decide what you want out of life, and a mentor is there to make sure you're asking the right questions and you're using the right approaches to answer the questions that you're asking. Right, you are asking the questions, you are answering it for yourself. The mentor is there just to guide you. So it is a very different picture from this wise sage that I initially started out with. But if you have a mentor like that, who's not opinionated, who's like do this and do that, but instead they kind of help you get that answer from your own self, I think mentorship is great. And somebody who's senior, who can give you that advice and guide you down the right path, is like a force multiplier in your industry. It's true for any industry, not just software. But yeah, that's what I think about mentorship.
Absolutely. One of the experiences that I had was, I mean, I was like a typical like passionate about technology, passionate about a specific framework kind of a guy, right? So I was really like into technology and not really worrying about stakeholders. How do you actually take the team along and things like that? And that's where like I had a mentor called Ravi Munusamy. He really helped me get over that, The initial part was like I was just focused on technology, but by asking the right questions and challenging me a lot, he actually got me thinking, okay, it's not just about the technology, it's about wider thing, it's about all the stakeholders who are involved. So yeah, so having the right mentor helps you take those step up much faster, much easier. Shiva?
Yeah, I too have a friend and mentor from whom I learn a great deal of things. Again, the interesting thing is, as Kaushik mentioned, it's not like they know everything, they know all the answers we want. It's like they can have a different perspective because when we are doing certain things, right, we think through it and then we are thinking we are doing the right thing because we are seeing from our own perspective. But when you have someone who knows you, it's not like a random person who knows you,
Yeah.
they can understand why you are doing so and so and with what intention. Is it going to work or not? If they don't know about you, they might not be able to give a proper guidance. And also, we are all figuring it, irrespective of experience level. We are all trying to figure out something or other. And there is a good chance that our seniors who has more experience might have already go through these struggles, and then they might figure out how to handle those things. So it is really very because time is precious. You might do all kinds of mistakes and then learn from you. But by then, if you are 45, and you might lose some opportunities. So it is really wise thing to get mentorship and then seek advice. Again, you don't have to follow 100% what your mentor said because whatever they give from their perspective, and you have to think, does it really applies to you? To give an example, right? A while ago, I joined one company, and one of my friend who already working there, he explained, "Here, dude, the work culture is awesome, and even on the Friday evenings, even afternoons, we just have a beer and then pizzas, and then we party. We don't code, we just party." That feels so great, and in fact, I joined also, and that is a great company. But me, I'm a hardcore introvert. I don't go into parties. That really that feature of going to party and having beer and all that really doesn't apply to me. So that's what you need to. You can take advices, but you need to consider that is that really applies to you. So you can take a different perspective from your mentors and then think through it. Does it really applies to you? But I see a great value in seeking mentorship and then or taking a little bit wiser steps because life is too short and making all the mistakes by yourself and making learning from them is really tough. So yeah, find a mentor.
And also, one other thing I recommend is to find mentor in your circle. A lot of people reach out to me. Maybe like Kaushik also has the same experience. Maybe Shiva, you have the same experience too. So people reach out to somebody online and asking them to be a mentor. One of the most important things to be a mentor is to understand your context. And I don't think a lot of people will have the time to understand your context. And that's why it's good if it's in some nearby circle. They don't need to be working directly with you, but maybe it's the same company as you, maybe doing some, like maybe in a social circle as you, so that they know a lot more, they know a lot more context and can give you some direction. Otherwise it becomes some kind of a generic thing, right? Yeah, I think those were some of the important things that I wanted to discuss about soft skills. Any other topics that you would want to highlight, Kaushik?
The one thing that I just realized when Shiva said that as an introvert is I want to call out the difference between the introvert and extrovert versus having good soft skills, because I've had this. People have asked me this before, right? The fact that we're saying about improve your soft skills doesn't mean become an extrovert. Okay, they're two very separate things. You can be an introvert and still have good soft skills. I consider myself an introvert, right? And a lot of software engineers do. That fits the Myers-Briggs persona type, if you believe in that thing of a software engineer. We are supposed to be stereotyped as introverts. The thing though is the whole introversion and extroversion is very much situation dependent. You can consider yourself an introvert in general, like when you're applying, when you're going to a party. But at the same time, when you're at work, when you have to speak up, you have to speak up. When you have to listen, you have to listen. And that is kind of it doesn't depend on introversion or extroversion, right? What we talk about as soft skills is the way in which you communicate, which you have to, the way in which you communicate. It's not about communicating more or
Yeah.
communicating less. So that's one point I wanted to make, because a lot of people say this: I'm struggling with soft skills because I'm an introvert. Well, no, it doesn't. Those two are not linked. So just wanted to call that
Yeah.
out.
One interesting point regarding the introvert versus extrovert is a lot of introverts, they don't speak so much, but if they have the right people and the subject is interesting, and you can't even imagine how much they talk. Usually, people know me in two groups: those who think I never talk, and those who think just stop talking. So usually people know me in these two directions. So if it comes to again, I don't know anything about cars. If somebody is talking about cars, I just try to disappear from that conversation. There is no place for me. I don't have a clue on what cars are, what type of. I don't have a clue. But if you're talking about, say, Game of Thrones or Quentin Tarantino movies, come on. Now I can talk. I can talk straight 5 hours without any interruptions. So introversion again, that depends on the topic and with what kind of a people you are with. If you are comfortable, done. You have to stop that introvert from talking. So introvert, extrovert, that has nothing to do with how effectively you can communicate. You need to find that comfort with the team, and then you have to talk in software development and at work. You have to talk. It's not like, oh, I am an introvert. That's an excuse for me to not talk. It doesn't work. You have to talk.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a fitting way to conclude this series of videos that we had. We like I think it was a when I started off, it was more of an experiment. I just wanted to see what we can do, and I'm really really surprised that we have kept it going for almost 5 months now. Like it's May. Like we started this in January, and we have recorded almost 15, 20, maybe around 15 videos, and that's awesome. uh, Kaushik, anything that you'd want to say about the series of videos, or anything that you'd want to tell to the learners?
Um, First of all, thank you for the opportunity to come to this, the series and share my perspectives. I appreciate the opportunity to address your audience as well, Ranga. I don't claim to know all the answers. I tried my best to provide whatever little I know. I hope people who are listening not just watch and forget about these videos. I hope you take the advice to heart and try and apply it. People who are on the architect uh, path, it is not easy, but it is just a matter of persistence, as with anything else in life. So keep at it and learn to be a good engineer, learn to be a good person. That's all linked, and that'll all help you in various different aspects. So yeah, those are my final words for the series. Thank you for having me.
Okay, first of all, viewers, this is not a goodbye from Kaushik. We'll definitely have Kaushik again in this series. It's just a break for a little while. Shiva.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited when we talk about we are going to have this series of discussions around architecture and art. I'm really excited, and I know I'm going to definitely learn from you both. And we had a very interesting conversations around various important topics, and I hope they are useful for many people. Because though we all work in a different context, there are a lot in common, and I hope we shared a good amount of our experiences. And I hope this series is helpful, and we are going to have a next series on maybe a different topic. Uh, yeah, thanks,
And in the
Ranga and
meanwhile, like
Kaushik.
while we don't have this series going, do not forget to follow Kaushik's podcast, and
Hmm.
do not forget to follow Shiva's new set of videos that he is creating. Kaushik, uh, first chance for you. Like anything that's coming up on the podcast.
I'll constantly work on it whenever I get a chance. I don't have like a fixed schedule, but make sure you subscribe. We talked earlier about push rather than pull. So push happens only when you subscribe to the right sources. So make sure you subscribe to the right sources and get good information pushed to you. Yeah, that's it for
Absolutely.
me.
Shiva?
Yeah, actually, I created my YouTube channel almost 5, 6 years ago. I just did 2 videos, and then I have other things. So I didn't create any other videos, but based on my experience with working with the Spring Boot and many other Java technologies, and I keep training some of the junior developers and then teams. And then I seek some common challenges that they face and common questions they have, which I did not find answers in many videos or tutorials. So what I try to do is to come up with a series of videos on Spring Boot to answer those kind of questions. They're mostly like how things work behind the scenes. It's not like how we can simply configure things and then run it. How things work behind the scenes. So I started creating videos. If you subscribe, hopefully they are something useful for you.
Absolutely. The links to both of them, I mean, to the Kaushik's podcast as well as to Shiva Labs YouTube videos, will be in the description of the video. So do check them out. I had a great time having both of you in the series. I really loved the discussions that we had, and I hope we brought a very different perspective to the usual content that is usually present on YouTube. Um, Hopefully the learners also had an interesting time. If you had if you have any feedback regarding this series of videos, do post them as comments, and hopefully you had a great time as well. Thanks a lot, Shiva. Thanks a lot, Kaushik, for being part of this, and hopefully I'll see you guys again very soon.
Thank you, Shiva.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'm sure you had a great time watching this video. If you loved this video, do not forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment as well. Our goal at In 28 Minutes is to help you learn cloud DevOps and also programming. So go ahead, keep learning every day, and I'll see you again.